So this video is going to be about molar mass, which is really important because it is foundational for this whole semester for things that you're going to need to do. You're going to have to do this all of pretty much until April, and even then you're going to need it again in May. So pretty much all semester you're going to be able to need to do molar mass. So let's get a basic working definition of what molar mass is. It is the amount of mass, which we know is measured in grams, in 1 mole of a substance. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is a mole? And we will get into that in our next unit. It's actually not important that you know what a mole is in order to calculate molar mass. But one thing that we do want to review is that if you look at any element on the periodic table, let's take carbon for example. Carbon is number 12, or excuse me, carbon is not number 12. Carbon is number 6 on the periodic table. It has a average atomic mass of 12.01. Okay, so that amount is the grams of carbon that is equal to 1 mole. Okay, so that's essentially the atomic mass or molar mass of an element. Okay, now this is super important because if I ask you then, okay, well, what is the molar mass of 2 moles of carbon? You just take 12.01 and multiply it by 2. Okay, but what if we don't have elements? Because we know in our last several units before we went on Christmas break, we were doing naming of ionic compounds and covalent compounds, we were doing chemical reactions. We know that most of the world is not just single elements, it's those elements combined together to make different compounds. Okay, so when we're talking about the molar mass of a compound, that is going to be just a little bit different, but the math is not super complicated. But there are a few things that you want to make sure that you have in front of you. You're going to want to have one, your periodic table. Remember, a chemist without their periodic table is like a knight without their sword. You're just not going to be able to save your grade or anyone else without that periodic table. So you're going to need a periodic table and you're going to need a calculator handy. Remember, you want to get in the habit of using a real calculator, not the calculator on your cell phone, because you won't be able to use that cell phone on a test or a quiz, and you want to make sure that you can really use a calculator correctly. So let's look at a compound like lithium chloride, for example, which just as a review, remember if I am looking at the name of an element, lithium is Li, and I'm going to use a different color here. Lithium is Li, and it's in column 1, so it has a +1 charge. And then chlorine is in column 17, so it has a -1 charge. So they don't need to cross and drop, which is why you saw me erase the 2, because I realized I made a mistake, which happens on occasion. So with lithium chloride, see that we have 1 atom of chlorine and 1 atom of lithium. That's because chemists are lazy and we don't write the subscript 1s that are really there. So what we're going to do is we are going to calculate the molar mass of lithium chloride. And so what we'll do is we'll list out our elements separately. So we have lithium and chlorine. We'll write up the number of atoms of each one. So I have 1 atom of each. And I'm going to multiply them by the atomic mass from the periodic table for each element. So lithium has an atomic mass of 6.94 grams, and chlorine has an atomic mass of 35.45 grams. And when I multiply those through, they stay the same. So 6.94 grams and 35.45 grams. And then I add them together. So I will have 7, a molar mass of 52.39 grams per mole. So what this final answer is really telling us here is that 52.39 grams of lithium chloride is equal to 1 mole of lithium chloride. Okay, it's similar to how we might say that 12 eggs are equal to 1 dozen. Okay, we're saying that those grams are equal to 1 mole. So let's do another problem. What if we have, let's say we have calcium hydroxide. Okay, we know that calcium is Ca, and calcium is in column number 2, so it has a +2 charge. And hydroxide is a polyatomic ion, which is found on the back of your periodic table, and it is OH with a -1 charge. And so with a +2 and a -1, we're going to need to cross and drop our charges. So we will get calcium, and we'll put hydroxide in parentheses with a 2 outside it, showing that I have 2 of everything inside the parentheses. Now that is extremely important information to make sure that you get correct. And the reason why is because if you mess up your cross and drop, when we go to count the number of atoms to do our molar mass, you might count incorrectly if it's not written correctly. So let's list out our elements. So we have calcium, oxygen, and hydrogen. Now I have 1 calcium atom, and then this 2 gets distributed to everything inside the parenthesis. So I have 2 oxygens as well as 2 hydrogens. And then we're going to multiply them by their mass on the periodic table. So calcium has a mass of 40.08 grams, oxygen is 16.00 grams, and hydrogen is 1.01 grams. And so when we multiply this through, we get 40.08 grams, 32.00 grams. Notice I'm still keeping my decimals and not rounding it to just 32 because that can change the significant figures of an answer. And then I will have 2.02 grams. And then I add them all together, and I have 74.10 grams of calcium hydroxide. And the key thing that I forgot to write is that it's grams per mole of calcium hydroxide. And that would be our final answer there. So if we want to kind of summarize what we've been doing in some steps, okay, let's go ahead and make sure we know these steps. So steps to calculate molar mass, or the amount of mass in 1 mole of a substance. Okay, the first step is to separate out the elements, count the number of each type, multiply by the atomic mass on the periodic table, and then add them together. So not terribly complicated, but a super critical skill that you'll need to be able to do very, very quickly in other problems. This will become second nature to you eventually. So good luck, and if you have any questions, please let me know.